For more now, though, let's go live to our chief political reporter, Kieran Gilbert. He's speaking with Craig Thomson's lawyer, Chris McArdle.
Chris McArdle, thanks for joining us. What exactly was seized in these raids of Mr Thomson's home and office today?
Oh, I don't have the inventory in front of me, but the usual thing the police take in when they execute search warrants is electronic and paper records. One of the important things they took was a sample of his handwriting. That will prove, after their handwriting people look at it, that will prove that he did not sign these dockets in these houses of ill repute. And I think I just heard Mr Abbott make remarks just then, as I was listening, that suggested that Mr Abbott is alleging that my client has committed criminal wrongdoing. If Mr Abbott has evidence of that, he should come forward forthwith, or he should shut his mouth. We will not tolerate our client being condemned by innuendo or ageing student politicians mouthing off. This is unacceptable conduct. Our client is an innocent man.
And obviously from your message this morning as well, the handwriting, as far as you can ascertain, is going to be the clincher in this case?
The clincher in this case is this fella hasn't done anything. If someone wants to prove that he's done something, they better get on about it. All they've done is just spread smears about him. People walk up to me in the street now when they've found out I've been acting for him and saying, oh, that bloke, watch out for him. How do they know? But it's because people have just smeared his good name. His reputation has been unwarrantedly destroyed by the sort of garbage remark that Mr Abbott just made. This must stop, and it must stop today. Mr Thomson has done nothing wrong. Now, the police have an obligation to investigate matters, and part of that is confiscating documents, which they have done with the full cooperation of Mr Thomson. What really worries me is that a television van with a satellite dish on it appeared outside his house about 20 minutes after the police. The press obviously knew about this about 1 to 2 hours before we did.
You've said this morning, you'd have to ask, is the purpose of the raid the administration of justice, or is it the purpose of the raid continuing the campaign against my client? Are you suggesting the authorities are engaged in something outside of their duties?
The police aren't. The police have an obligation to investigate matters that are raised. Someone, however, told a news van with a satellite dish on it about this with enough notice for them to get there 20 minutes after the police did. They got from Sydney to Wyong.
Who else other than the police would have provided the info, though?
You might know that answer better than me. I certainly don't know.
It seems to me that the police would be the only ones with knowledge of what they were going to do today.
If you have information, then you should come forward with it too.
Yeah, well, I don't have any information in that regard, but it's interesting
that's
that
one
you
of the
say...
problems with this matter. People with no information are sounding off.
But you're saying that, well, you're saying that the scandalous aspect of this is that the press arrived at the same time. It often happens with raids, though, doesn't it?
I don't do criminal law, usually, but I have had cases where my clients have had their houses raided with search warrants, and I've never seen a satellite dish outside a house before. The police are an independent statutory force with certain obligations, and they rang me to give me a courtesy call that they had arrived, and they acted with great courtesy towards me and my client and his staff and his family. However, someone somewhere in the background is manipulating the institutions of the state for their own political purposes, which is, if I may understate the situation, improper.
OK, your client has seemingly tried to distance himself from the police investigations into the HSU. It's quite clear, though, from this raid where the focus is, or at least in part.
Well, my client, our advice to our client is that he will not be arrested. He will not be charged with a criminal offence. That will not happen. If we're wrong about that, he would be acquitted at the first hearing, because he hasn't committed a crime. As far as the matter before the federal court goes, which is a civil matter regarding breach of the Fair Work Act, we'll win. He hasn't done anything.
Has Mr Thomson agreed to be interviewed by Strike Force Carnarvon? If not, why not?
Because we're lawyers, we act in the legal interests of people. We advise everybody, without exception, not to be interviewed by the police. And that's the normal democratic right, which seems to cause some sort of discomfort to people, democracy. This is a civilised society, and we'll act in accordance with the precepts of that society, which somehow upsets people.
Mr McArdle, you've said that your client's holding up well, but no human being could take this for much longer. Is there consideration of just quitting Parliament and trying to gain some privacy and be done with this?
We'll ask him that. So I'm certainly not briefed on his career.
What about him and his family? How are they holding up after the raid and the scrutiny of today?
Does that question really need an answer?
I'd like one if you can.
Well, I want everybody to think about it. They're asleep in bed and 15 strangers show up at their front door, shove a piece of paper through the front door and come in. Think about that. Particularly if you've done nothing.
So where
it's
to
like
from
something
here?
Out of a Kafka novel, because people have been saying he's done stuff and they've been saying it 100 times, so they can't be wrong, can they, if they've said it 100 times?
Where to from here, Mr McArdle?
Well, where to from here will be nowhere, because the police will not charge him, and as I said, if they do, he will be acquitted very, very quickly. Then we're off to the federal court and he will win that. Plus, I'd like to put a lot of people on notice. Stop saying defamatory things about my client. We've already started suing one person and we will not stop. So the way to not get sued is to not defame my client.
OK. Just finally, you've said it's something out of a Kafka novel on one hand, but you've also said the police have done their job, and Mr Thomson said they were courteous and so on. Is there not a contradiction in those 2 points?
No, the police are acting in accordance with their democratic constitutional duty. It is other people who are out of the Kafka novel.
Chris McArdle, I appreciate your time today. Thanks very much for that.
My pleasure.